This three-bean casserole is dumb.
I'm so sorry, babe. I hadn't tasted him yet.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Looking forward to, you know. Like,
don't talk about the ingredients. I know. Yeah.
After, it's just a surprise for your mouth.
yeah.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we got major things happening in Amazing Spider-Man. It is felt for quite some time that Nick Spencer's ASM run, which will culminate in issue 73 or 74 in a couple weeks, was going to be retconning One More Day. And boy, were we right. He's retconning something, but it might not be One More Day. He's retconned so much stuff this week at ASM 73. It's absolutely bonkers. This is going to be full of spoilers. I'm going to go over the information as I understand it, and maybe a couple of theories in here. But I will say this. If you have not been reading Spider-Man like religiously for 20 years, you're going to find yourself lost, because he retcons a lot of stuff here. He retcons, I believe, life theft, the death of Harry Osborn, Sins Past, and a couple other stories. Major ramifications for ASM moving forward. Really good changes. I think for the most part, it's almost a toss-up. What is the most hated, Amazing Spider-Man story or Spider-Man story ever? Is it Sins Past? Is it One More Day? It felt like we were leading up to One More Day, and that Doctor Strange and Mephisto had been talking about Peter Parker's soul and kind of what was lost in the deal that was made at the end of One More Day. It turns out that's not what they've been talking about. They've been talking so far about not Sins Past, but the deal that Norman Osborn made for the soul of his son, Harry Osborn, which was just reintroduced, that storyline in the last issue, where we saw the AI Harry Osborn return in ASM 72 and kind of reminding Norman that he sold his soul to Mephisto, that there was a heavy price to pay. And it certainly appears that Norman Osborn is filled with a lot of regret for doing this. And so all this, it felt like he was going to be addressing that One More Day situation. But really, this whole storyline's been about the soul of Harry Osborn. And he's been not only been attacking Peter Parker Spider-Man, but his father, Norman, who he blames essentially for damning him, to a life of damnation. Obviously, he's escaped as a form of Kindred. Although it's hinted at a couple of times in here that maybe Kindred isn't Harry Osborn. But no, it's Harry Osborn. It's got to be. It's got to be the Harry Osborn, the original, whose soul went to hell, who's escaped. It is now, essentially exacting his revenge. So let's get into some of these major retcons. Everyone's going to want to hear about Sins Past first. So let's talk about the Sins Past retcon. Everyone hates this storyline. If you aren't aware, and I imagine most of you are, this is the one where it's revealed that before she passed away, that Gwen Stacy, in fact, had a physical romantic relationship with Norman Osborn, and she became pregnant. I believe she went off and had two children named Sarah and Gabriel, twins, a twin boy and twin girl. And that, in fact, Peter Parker and Gwen had never, consummated their relationship, that she had only been physical with Norman Osborn. This is definitely one of the original sins of Marvel Comics. This was absolutely despised by readers. People hated this change. They hate it to this day. And they are going to be rejoicing. If you're seeing on social media and stuff, all this talk about Spider-Man and Sins Past, this is what they're talking about. It's no more. It has been retconned out by Nick Spencer. In a very convoluted manner, I might add. This is one of the most convoluted comic issues I've ever read in my life, because it's doing so much in one single comic book issue. I've read it twice. I'm going to have to read it a few more times to fully understand, because I personally, while I do love Spider-Man and I've read a lot of these stories, I have not as read up on Spider-Man as I wish I was, because I know that I'm missing a lot. And if you notice that I've missed something there, definitely throw it in the comments section. We want to have a discussion about this stuff, because these are big time changes. So this is how they retconned Sins Past. Norman never had sex with Gwen. It was all a ruse by Harry Osborn with the help of Mysterio. And you're going to hear Mysterio's name a lot. Basically, Harry used Mysterio to implant those memories into Norman Osborn. And that makes you go, well, what about Sarah and Gabriel? Those are not his children. And there's even kind of a line of dialogue from AI Harry Osborn that's explaining this to his father Norman. That kind of, I don't know, it feel like they were just like twisting it to the writers of Sins Past, which I think is it Straczynski? Yeah, I was right. J. Michael Straczynski was one that wrote that, and the line of dialogue that AI Harry Osborn says to his father, "With Gwen, get real, Dad. She was way too classy for you." Essentially echoing the sentiments of essentially every Spider-Man reader ever almost. Like, this doesn't even make sense. There's no way that she would have done this. So there was no relationship between Norman Osborn and Gwen Stacy. It was all the ruse by Harry Osborn after the fact, after she died. This AI version of Harry Osborn, which gets a little bit more complicated as I talk about this. Now, this makes you say, well, what about this Harry Osborn that we've seen? He's in the morgue with Carly, and they've seen his body, the dead body of Harry Osborn. What the hell does all that mean? Well, he sees the body, and he's aware that is him, but he knows that he actually never returned from the dead. Harry Osborn died as the Green Goblin. That scene where Mephisto comes in with Norman Osborn, like, oh, we put on a big show. Let's replace the body with the exact clone and all that stuff because Harry's not really dead. That never happened. That was, once again, he thought he was using Mysterio to fuel everybody else, but really AI Harry Osborn was fooling Norman. He died that day. He never returned. And so that kind of gets complicated because we see this Harry Osborn within the 616 for so many years. It's not explicitly explained this. That version of Harry Osborn that we're seeing in the 616 that's still alive and has a family and all that stuff, that's returned after the death, his death as Green Goblin, that was supposed to be a ruse, but was really a ruse on Norman. That's Gabriel, the child that Norman thought was his son with Gwen Stacy, right? At least I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Using, I think, Chameleon's like serum or whatever. Pretty sure, because we do get explanations on Sarah and Gabriel. They are not, in fact, children. They're like a cloning experiment that Harry Osborn set up in part of his death. He was uploaded it as AI Harry Osborn, and he made a what's the name of the villain? It's Strom something. He made a deal with this guy to make a cloning laboratory, and he's been experimenting, trying to bring Sarah and Gabriel like to fruition for years. But the Green Goblin serum within Harry, well, apparently he's cloning himself, was causing the bodies to decay. So I guess there's an enormous graveyard with all these like dead clones of Sarah and Gabriel, where the experiments didn't work out. Sometimes they were more successful than others. We did get the Gray Goblin thing, which is addressed in here, and we've seen good and bad versions of these confidentials. Now you say, well, what about MJ? She also remembered Gwen telling her about all this. It was, she confided all this information into her. Well, guess what? Mysterio did that too. We're getting a lot of retcons using Mysterio. It feels like I'm reading a Tom King Batman comic with Psycho Pirate changing everything. But, obviously a lot more retcons here. But me personally, if we're getting rid of Sins Past, I'm in favor of the retcons. Let's just put it that way. I think most people will take what they have to make all this stuff make sense. And if I'm being completely honest, when it's all said and done, it's not going to make sense. It's going to make more sense, but it's so convoluted at this point. It's going to be very difficult to make all this stuff seamlessly and basically explain everything out. And then at this point, at the very beginning, it looks like Kindred has revealed to MJ that Kindred herself is actually Gwen Stacy. It's confirmed later that MJ is actually talking to Sarah. So a full-born, fully grown, developed clone the Sarah clone. So I believe the Gabriel clone is Harry Osborn, that's living in the real world and has a wife and family, and this Sarah clone that he has now, and they fought each other apparently. We've had evil versions of Gabriel fight the one that's taking the place of Harry Osborn, and they couldn't, I guess, come to grips with the fact that they were fighting themselves. It's all going to get more fully explained in the last issue, which will be 80 pages, even more so than we have right now. But this version that she thought was Gwen Stacy, it turns out it's Sarah, and Sarah is actually Kindred. So Harry Osborn, as the AI, is the AI, but he's also controlling Harry Osborn. That's Gabriel impersonating Harry Osborn, and then Sarah, who's actually like the physical manifestation of Kindred, being controlled by the soul, the damned soul of Harry Osborn. That's the way I understand it. Is that how you understand it? Because it's so complicated. But this is big news. So those are a lot of the retcons. There's another further retcon that happens with the parents of Peter Parker. Remember, in Life Theft, it turns out it was AI Harry Osborn that actually used Chameleon to create android replicas of Peter's parents to get at him. This has been some long game playing on AI Harry Osborn, like this perverted, disgusting version that Harry, I guess, loaded up into a computer, and in the event of his death, he came online, and he's been doing all these things to Peter Parker for years upon years and years, and he's also been doing them to his father, Norman Osborn, I guess, to ruin their lives for what was done to him. Now we've seen Kindred obviously has returned. And we also saw this kind of hinted at in the previous issue at ASM 72, where it's like gotcha, very reminiscent of the Harry Osborn on the computer, basically messing with Peter Parker back in the Life Theft story arc. Crazy stuff. We've had major retcons to Life Theft, Death of Harry Osborn, Sins Past, in other stories. I've definitely missed some things here. Like I said, if I've missed something or if I misinterpreted things, maybe I got it wrong. I've read it twice, and there's so much going on here. It is a kind of hard to get it all together. If you have a different interpretation, definitely we need to hear about in the comments section, have a conversation about these things, because these are huge changes. If you hate Sins Past and you've always wanted to see that story arc wiped from existence, today is your day. It happened. Sins Past is no more. One More Day, the story we thought they were addressing, was it a red herring? Or is that the main event in ASM 74, which I kind of feel like it is. But we did get some retcons to other stories and things like that. There's a lot to get through in ASM 74, Nick Spencer's last issue on the run. He's got 80 pages, but there's so much that he has to tie up. It almost feels like it would be impossible. What is the deal with Mephisto and Doctor Strange? They've been playing this weird dance with each other. It feels like for the last several issues, or for quite some time. The very end of this, they come back together. They're not really talking specifics. We thought they were talking about Peter Parker's soul. Turns out, or at least it appears that they were talking about Harry Osborn's soul, which is strange because he didn't, like, when Strange learned about this, it was when he was in like Peter Parker's mind kind of thing. So maybe they were talking about One More Day, but we've also, Kindred was talking about Sins Past. Crazy, right? Is Peter Parker going to ask MJ to marry him? He's had the ring. He's supposedly going to want to, he's been wanting to pop the question. She's obviously being held by Kindred. He's in Kindred's mausoleum, along with all the other players in this. They've all ended up in the cemetery at the same time. We're going to have an enormous showdown. Will Peter finally ask MJ to marry him? It's certainly hinted at by the cover of ASM 74 that they will get married. We see Mary Jane with a bouquet of flowers in her hand, like they just got married maybe at the Little White Wedding Chapel. It appears, if that happened, does that break the One More Day deal with Mephisto that essentially brought Aunt May back, but also destroyed the marriage and a lot of other things between Mary Jane and Peter Parker? They also have to explain Kindred's backstory. We kind of know who it is, I believe. how do they get out of hell? Like how do they escape? There's got to be more backstory. Nick Spencer has to fill in some more blanks, and likely confirm that extra Harry Osborn is in fact Gabriel. I'm pretty sure it is, but it certainly wasn't confirmed yet. And we have to have a big fight. We have not had the Spider-Man Kindred fight. We've had Kindred murdering Spider-Man over and over and over, returning him back to life. Obviously, that's not going to be the end of it. You imagine Spider-Man's going to win versus Kindred, right? It doesn't feel like the Kindred story arc is moving forward after ASM 74 into Spider-Man Beyond. We do see that it looks like he's almost dead. Perhaps that will be the outcome. But there's a big fight to be had. So, hey, 2 weeks is going to be a long time to finally get all these things filled in and maybe some more answers. And perhaps even, wouldn't it be amazing within a 2-week period, we had Sins Past and One More Day fully retconned out of Marvel continuity? Sins Past never happened. To do One More Day, it's going to have to be a little bit different. You can't just wipe that one out the way that they did with Sins Past today. It's likely going to be breaking the deal or whatever and undoing it. But if you undo One More Day that way with Mephisto, does it break the 616? Does it break all fabric of existence and realism or the real world within the Marvel universe? I don't see how it can't. Crazy stuff happening in ASM. We knew that we were leading up to a big reveal, a big retcon. Thought it was One More Day. Turns out it's Sins Past. I've got a feeling, just a little feeling, that it's also going to be One More Day in Amazing Spider-Man 74. I hope you enjoyed the issue. It's not the most fun read. It's exciting, but it is very convoluted. We got a lot of Mysterio, doing illusions. We've got Chameleon going in there and helping, and we got an AI Harry Osborn that's been on a path of destruction to destroy Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and his father, Norman Osborn, since he actually died as a Green Goblin and never returned from the dead. It was all a ruse on Norman Osborn as well. Crazy, crazy stuff. I got to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on this? This is nuts. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.